Welcome, everybody, to the May 8th, 2026 edition of FMDiSC. We've got some really great content today. We're going to have Agnes Riley in just a bit. We're going to have some break and announcements. We're going to bring in the lovely and talented Mr. Chris Moyer as general to kind of chaperone us through the world of technology and Roundup data that he's assembled. And then closing out the meeting, we're going to have Bob Shockey, uh, kind of doing a newbie, a naive approach to vibe coding. So we get to watch Bob's travels through this particular excursion of his. So it promises to be a good meeting. So without any further ado, I want to turn you guys loose with Agnes. She has got an amazingly clever tool that she's been working on. It's been getting a lot of attention in the community, and she's going to share that with us today. So, good morning, Agnes.
Good morning, everybody. So, for those who don't know me, let me give you guys a very quick intro, although that tends to be longer than I would like it to be, so I'm going to try to make it very quick. I'm originally from Hungary. I did not do any technology training. I did not do any technology work for many, many years, and I sort of ended up working with FileMaker by accident. I worked for HBO in Hungary in a sort of a lower management position where I just overheard my coworkers always complaining that they can't do this, they can't do that. And so I rolled my sleeves up and I jumped in, climbed under the desk and reconnected the local talk back in the day. And they were like, oh my gosh, she's a genius. I was like, oh, cable, whatever. So that's how it started. And then, we worked with the databases that we had, and our FileMaker developer moved to a different country. So we had nobody to make changes. And I figured out how to add fields, how to add layouts, how to eventually add everything. I found the book and then I started coding. So eventually I updated all of our systems, and then they took whatever I built to the other HBOs, to Poland and the Czech Republic. And by then they were like, kind of extensive, I would say apps, systems, whatever. And then in 90, and so for the rest of the time in Hungary, no matter where I worked, I had two jobs. I did IT, and then I had my job that I did. And when I moved to the US in 99, I sat down and really thought about, would I like to have two jobs and get paid for one, or do I just want to do one? And I decided to just try to do IT. So I went to work at Apple. I worked at an Apple store. I was a sort of a Mac genius. I never got the title or the pay, but I worked as a Mac genius. And then I just kept on sort of moving up, sideways, elsewhere, whatever. But FileMaker was always part of the game. And since 2008, I've been working mostly in FileMaker. So with that, I would like to introduce you to FMDojo. And let me tell you how that came about. I worked at Claris last year as a senior product manager. And while I can't tell you much about that role or what that entailed, I can tell you that I wanted to do quite a few things that sort of did not make the cut. But I noticed that the community wanted a lot of things that sort of aligned with my vision of where things should go. And I also had a lot of, wish list items. So I was laid off in October, and I already had a product that I started working on back in a year and a half prior. That was a chat GPT, baby GPT app that a lot of you might be familiar with. I think it was called FM Mentor. So you could go and ask questions, but it was still using the regular chat GPT, and so it was still hallucinating a little bit. I am so sorry. I just realized that I left the window open. So give me 1 second. Let me pause the video and close the window. I'm so sorry. Because we have trash coming. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so Chat GPT was, hallucinating a little bit or a lot, making up functions, making up script steps that it didn't have. So I started thinking, how can I fix this problem? Because if it's a problem for me, it's a problem for everybody else. So I started I started thinking about this, and then I started talking to AI, and then I started thinking more, and that's kind of how I came up with the first app that's in FMDojo. And then I had more ideas, and then I just kept on going, and just more and more features came out of it. And then I started talking to some of you and more of you, and criticism, constructive criticism, and more ideas basically is what pushed the app to where it is now. It is still a work in progress, so it is not perfect. At this point, I wouldn't say it's mostly bug free, but it's largely bug free. So am I allowed to share my screen? I am, right? Nope, not there. May I have an opportunity to do that, please? Yes, thank you. Or granted? Granted yet?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so what this is basically is an ecosystem. What that means is it is not a tool. Think of it as a Leatherman arc. For example, if anybody is familiar with the Leatherman line, I'm sure everybody is familiar with the Leatherman line. They create these fabulous tools, and the arc, I think, is the masterpiece. It's the $250 tool that has everything, and it's super easy, one-handed use. So you can open and use the knife, and you can use every bit of it, basically one-handed. You can lock it in, and you have a little like button on it as well. The
Agnes,
reason
quick question. Are you sharing your screen right now?
I am.
We're not getting it right at the moment.
Okay, let's try it one more time.
There we
Better?
go. Yep.
Okay. Okay, let me hide meeting controls. Okay. Let me hide the faces so I don't see myself. And this. Okay, so that is how I aimed to develop this. Make it easy, make it fast, and make it as simple as it can be. So every time I look at it and I find something that I can improve, I go and improve it. If somebody says, this is great, but I listen and I try to work on it. And I work on it until it gets better. And I'll give you an example. I have a few people who bought it and have been helping, even though they are paying customers, have been helping with just testing and giving feedback. One of the first ones were Hansa and Kevin Frank. I have to mention them because they put a tremendous amount of work into the app in the beginning. Honza helped with more the UI UX part of it, and some of the actual chat responses. And Kevin mostly helped with the chat responses and basically the accuracy of the chat responses. Because if it's not accurate, then it's not worth anything. So then there are more and more people who are working on, helping me. And, in the beginning, I sometimes took some of the feedback a little to the heart, and I learned to not do that. So if
Don't
people
take it to
complain,
heart.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Can everybody mute your microphones?
Okay, thank you. So I learned not to be sensitive about it because it's an app, it's development, and it is their job to criticize me. And it is my job to fix problems, right? So, for example, somebody complained that they didn't like the theme. And while the theme is important to me, and it's important to a lot of you because this app is dedicated to Shin, and there's a page about our relationship, and a lot of you know Shin, people said that they don't like the theme. And this is the original theme. They didn't like the dashed lines. And some of them I said, you know what? I originally didn't like the dashed lines either, but in a day or two, you actually don't even see them. I mean, generally, everything you get used to, we're humans. You know, you can see upside down, your eyes and your brain adjust, right? But I thought about it, so I gave a lot of themes to people. So you want Valentine, you got Valentine. You want, you know, retro, you got retro. You have a lot of things. One of my favorites is winter because it's just plain blue with a little bit of lighter blue. But you have choices. I think I like dim as well. And Nord. But I left the Sakura flowers here, but most of the other pages don't have them. Okay, so let's dive in. I think I talked about the how and the why and the what and the whatnots. So this is where it all started. And I'm going to go left to right, and I'm going to try to be cautious about the time, but if I'm going too slow, somebody please hit me with a whip. Thank you. Every panel, I'm trying to be consistent about the design as much as possible. As I said, it's a work in progress, so if anybody sees something eventually, do let me know. Every panel should be collapsible, and then you should have buttons to be able to bring them back. So you have a list on the left, and then you have a work area on the right. Sometimes you have another list on the right. So the chat basically is very similar to your Claude or your ChatGPT, right? You have a history of chats, and then you have a chat window where you can ask a question, and then you can attach, you know, files. Oopsie. Actually, somebody said that I should be using a light theme on presentations, so let's do that. Although you guys have not complained.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is this light enough?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So, but we have dark theme, and not that we're talking about it, because I worked with Dennis while I worked at Claris. We have a little bit of a help on the bottom, so you can actually adjust everything right here, just so you know, and you can go back to normal. And it works everywhere. Okay. So, chat. Regular chat, I'm not going to get into it. I'm sure everybody knows how to chat, right? You ask a question, you're going to get an answer. But what's important here is that all the FileMaker knowledge is local to the app. So we have an AWS-based database that has all the FileMaker knowledge base, aka FileMaker script steps, FileMaker calculations, FileMaker just general knowledge, error codes, and everything else that can work together. So it cannot really hallucinate anymore. But sorry, dog. So that's why it cannot come up with, and it's instructed to use that and not go out to the web and try to answer your question. So it should not come up with calculations or script steps anymore, and it hasn't, from what I heard, that are not FileMaker. Because back in the day, you used to have, I think that was one of the things that Honza pointed out, that like, oh, this looks like an interesting function, except it doesn't exist in FileMaker. And for example, what I'm showing you right now is an example of when I see something that makes no sense to me, then I let it know. So in this particular chat, it said, oh, paste that XML into a text file in your repo, for example. So I instructed it that like we actually have that in the app. There's no need to go anywhere else. So when you have something in the app, instruct your engine to use that and give a link to that so the user can click on it and go to the right place in the app itself. So you don't have to travel all over the place, because the minimum travel will save you time. So that's about, how this works. We have chat history based on your level. So depending on how much you pay, how much chat history you have. Since we have chat, I wanted to take this a little bit further. So we have folders. You can add the folder and save it. So let's say I can add a folder called, I don't know, main, right? And I just found the bug, right? See, where's my main folder? And let me see if I can add this to a folder. Unfiled, yeah, no folders yet. I just added one, didn't I? Main, right? Okay, well, bug to fix. Since we're recording this, I will sort all the bugs out afterwards. But had this been created, you could actually put it into a folder from here. It's not really all that exciting in this particular part, but I'll show you somewhere else where this actually makes a lot of sense. But you can edit the titles, you can delete these, and somebody asked for a, can we please select multiple chats? So you can do that now. You can delete 1, 2, 3, 4 chats at the same time, so you don't have to do it one by one. And even ChatGPT doesn't have that. So I think that's enough about chat itself, except that pretty much everywhere, but it's all started from chat, we have a share button. So if I click that, and then I go over to, let's say, Safari, where I am hopefully not logged in, and I paste this link in, you get a garbled link with a shared chat. And this is what you get. So your entire chat, no matter how long that is going to be sent to somebody else. Now, since I'm not logged in, I will just get this try FMDojo. But if I were logged in, at the bottom, it will say, you can save this into your own. But I'll show you something more, because it just keeps on getting better from here. So this has been exhausted. Let's move on. Code. This is pretty extensive. So I'm going to speed up a little bit. Same kind of concept. List on the left, area on the right that you work in. This one, folders are working. So folders are basically creating a clip manager, and these can be shared. So I can click that, and I can go back to Safari, and I can add that in here. And now I have these snippets, basically, and you could save that to the library. Although this button should not show if I don't have an account. So that's another thing to fix. But that's how you can create a library and then share them, with other people at once. Okay. Next, as you can see, there are these little colored pills on the bottom as well. That's coming from here. And then you can also add, that's a script step or any of these clip types for the clips, right? This is a script thing. We have quite a few, what did somebody call them? Not languages, but what do we call these things? Something else is. But we have SQL, HTML, JavaScript. I bundle them together because it makes sense to do it that way to me, and I think for other people as well. JSON, YAML, XML, FM calculation script, and schema. And this screen will tell you what they can do and what they cannot do. When they can't do something, it's not because of FMDojo's limitation, it's because of the actual language's limitation. So, for example, XML cannot autocomplete because the language itself cannot do that. So let's see how this works. So I have here an editable text. So if I go in here and delete something, it's going to get deleted. Now, of course, I can undo. So that's something that's built in as well. I also have typo head. So we have the autocomplete. Let's say I want to type set field. So there you have that. I can click that. And now, since I have a database connected from a snapshot, well, I'll get to that in a minute. That's here. But since we're going left to right, but I want to show you this to you right now. We have this table field thing here. I can highlight that or just click in here, and I can right click and I can pick something from that. And I didn't highlight it properly, but if I did, or maybe I'm not seeing properly because I'm blind, then it would just put that in, and that's basically coming from that address table address field. And then you can just type this over whatever you want with that. I'm going to delete this because I don't want it. And as you see, it's color coded, so you can see what's a comment, what's not a comment, and it's all real proper FileMaker, whatchamacallit, code. I am missing a button which disappeared at some point, which is the validate button. So imagine that it's here because it used to be, because that's one of the coolest things that we had in here, that you could actually validate that it's a perfect script. Oh, yeah, you know what? Maybe I took it out because we have the code chat now, duh. So you can tell the code chat, which by the way has history as well. So you have all this stuff, but I could just say, let's delete this because I don't need that anymore. Just like ask, like, can you take a look at this script? And you don't have to say which one it is because it knows. Opa! That's a problem. I will take a look at that, but it worked earlier this morning. I'll take a look at that and see what happened with there. But I promise you that it works, and it will take a look at this particular script. Now I wish I didn't delete that, because now I'm going to have a problem demoing it elsewhere. But I don't want to do live troubleshooting because that would just not be cool. But it would just say that, like, it found that, let's say, this wouldn't evaluate properly because blah, 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 or whatever. It beautifully evaluates the entire script, and it gives you, another version, or it will give you alternate recommendations. And if you rewrite the entire script, then you have a button underneath that you can click, and it will just put it in here. And if you don't like it, you can still undo. So just let's pretend that this was working. I'm sorry. You can check it out. I promise you that it works in videos and stuff. So, embarrassment. Let's throw it out. We do have other options in here, which is we have diffing. So I can say, I'm just going to copy this over. So we're just going to show that this is, that's not good because that's not going to work that well. What I'm going to do is make a new snippet and call that an FM script and say diffing example. Create that snippet and put that in here. Save that, although it's not auto-saving. And which one did I show? Who remembers which one this was? Was it Paul's? No. Oh. Yes, Paul's. Okay. So now I can say that I want to click in here and click that. Nope, not that one. Sorry. Oopsie, where's the new one? Where's the new one? What am I doing wrong? I did add the new snippet, didn't I? Oh, here. There you go. Okay. The thing was that. Okay. So now this doesn't have anything, but if I turn this off and go to a diffing example and say, I'm going to say this 3 and save this. And now I go back and I'm going to go in here and say pause. Shh. Where is it? This is not working either. I'm going to eat my something. Hello. Shh. Somebody's talking. Who's talking? Not me. No, it's me. That's why you're not supposed to do any work the night before. Where is it? Here, this line. It highlighted it before beautifully, and now it's not working. Why is that? Let me do a refresh just for grits and giggles. Okay, different example. Pause. Nope, I broke it. Okay, well, it has a diffing engine, so normally it highlights beautifully the lines that are different, just like in any diffing software. Oh, it highlighted all the other lines in green before. I don't think it's a theme thing. So maybe I have introduced a lot of bugs last night. I don't know, but this was working beautifully. So I apologize. I'm going to move on. We have a divider that you can move. So if you have a long script, you can see the very beginning and then the very end of it, which can be useful, again, if you have a long script. Every one of these windows you can make a little bit bigger, so you can see more of it. All right, SQL is pretty cool because you can set up your own database in here. So you can say, I want to build a table, and then it's going to ask you what table would you like to build. And I'm imagining that some things are broken right now, but I can try. Say, I want to build order and items. Let's see if that's going to work. Did not, did it? This is really bad. I'm so sorry. Did not even do anything at all.
Agnes,
Yes.
I want to make sure that everybody gets a full sense of what all the features are in your product and how they help. And so if you're having some issues with them not working and trying to demonstrate them, let's make sure at least everybody knows what the capabilities are.
Okay, so basically what this does is, you tell AI what you want to build, and it will build this table for you automatically. So it would say, create table if not exists, order, and then everything that the order needs, and then whatever you need for the order as well. So it created this invoices and shipments, and then it created the data as well. So you can create a SQL query, and then it helped you write, because there's a code chat here as well. So you can ask to write that SQL query, but you can write it yourself as well, because here you also have, the auto, what do you call that? Type ahead. So you can create that yourself if you're good at it pretty quickly, and then you can test that right away in here. But if you're not good at writing SQL queries, or if it's a really large and complicated multi-table query, then you can ask AI to help you with it. You can dump it right in here, and then you can run it, and it will just give you the result right away. So you know that your SQL is gonna evaluate. And then you can copy this, and then you can paste that into your FileMaker as a calculation or into a script. So this part is working beautifully. Okay? Does that help? Did that help?
Yes.
Okay. So let's check this out. I'm going to add a new piece here and then paste this in here. And then you can do that. Now, another cool thing that we have, although I did show you that you can actually, hook this up to your connected, database. So let's just forgive me for please forgive me for the AI part not working, and imagine that it is working, because it will be working as soon as I am done with the demo, sadly. We also have themes just for the editor. So if you like editing, seeing everything in light mode, but you want to do this part in dark mode, you can do that too. Okay, where was I think? Top light, right? Okay, so let's go back to winter. Okay, another cool thing is this one that doesn't need AI, but it also has, AI to build it. But I have built a JS fiddle for you guys. So you have your HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and FM data block. And you can choose from quite a few starter elements or starter charts or fiddles or whatever. I tried to pick the most useful ones that we use in FileMaker. Let me know if anything is missing and anything you would like to add. So here's an Apex charts demo, and you can just run that, and it will create you a beautiful chart. Let me pull this up a little bit. It's right here. Okay. I think. Oh, what happened to my? Oh, there it is. It's moving. Okay. Now you can copy this as a FEM as well. But I already pasted in here, but let me show you how easy this is, as most of you know, but some of the viewers might not, that whatever you have in here, if or nothing, you just paste it in here, and then you hit OK, and you go back to browse mode, and there it is. There it was. There it is. There is not. Right? Nothing's working today. Oh man. Okay, can you do an undo? No, we can't do an undo. We can do an undo. That one's working. Let me see if another one is working. Yesterday everything worked, I promise. A lot of people saw it, I promise. A lot of people saw it that it's working. You have a lot of different charts, a lot of different options. We even have a pivot table. And then, all you got to do is just replace your data with the variables in your web viewer. So you can play with these. We have a Gantt chart, we have, calendar. I know we're always, having a hard time. We have a nice pie chart. We even have a donut chart, if I'm correct, somewhere. Donut chart. Anyway, I think that's enough of this. You can play with these, and you can validate all of these, and that's how that goes. Now, if you have trouble pasting elements into FileMaker, which I don't, so I can just go and export this as XML, and it will just automatically copy it for me. And so I can go into FileMaker and open up scripts, have a new script, and paste it in here. But I'm an older Mac Pro user, an M1 with Mac OS Tahoe. But if you have Sequoia, then you will have trouble pasting it in just like this. So for those people, there are a few options. We have helper files and base elements plugin, but I also wrote my own plugin, which will show up here, although it shows up somewhere else as well. And you can use those, and it will be just like this, super easy. But there's even more and better ways of doing things in Dojo. You can also share, this, I think I showed you this before, that you can actually share this snippet with somebody else. You can actually copy just the text if you want. You can download the code. And you can also get the XML from FileMaker. You paste it in here, the FMXML snippet, and then you can create the code. You can edit it in here. And this works for your mobile phone as well. So it's completely phone friendly. If you just hide this, then you can just, work on it from your phone So, train and you want to work and just basically use it when you get to work, you can do that. Okay, moving on. Design, I would say it's in baby shoes, or like it's kind of getting there, but it's almost there. But it's FileMaker aware. So you have these buttons, you can just add, whatever you want. Finally fix the zoom in and out, so you can actually add quite a few elements and fit them. And then you can have these saved bits, so you can actually collect elements, create whatever you want, from them. And then I'm working on really tying them to the database, so you don't have to redo whatever you do in here. We have design chat for this as well. Parts of that is automated. So all you have to do is just pick what are you trying to build. Let's say I want to build, a dashboard. Which table occurrence? This is again coming from here. Let's say company. And then you can just pick your fields, whatever. I'm just going to pick some blah, whatever. And then it says, okay, blah, 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 blah. Any extra details, optional, generate. It probably is going to crap out if the other one crapped out. So I'm not expecting anything magical right now. No, it actually worked. Never mind. Okay, add to canvas. There you go. So it's not perfect. I'm still working on it. That's what I'm saying. Like this is, you still have to do some of this manually for the time being, that like, hey, put it on the thing, but I'm working on it. It's going to be pretty perfect soon. It's getting there. You also have import Figma. That definitely works. So you go to Figma, create what you want to create, make it pretty, or pick something that somebody else created and it tells you how to bring it in here. Pick that link. I have videos about all this, and then bring it in here, have your Figma stuff in here. I think one of these that I had in here was from Figma. Actually, I can say these are dump it. Now, here's another fun one. Diagram, aka ERD for us. One of them was created. I cannot remember if this was manual or created automatically, but it's pretty FileMaker-like. It will tell you what's connected to what and how it's connected. And you can, add from whatever that was, created from. So this was from a different database, and we're not going to mess that up. But if I want to create a new one, or like this was from another database, company and, contact, you can color these to your liking. Colors look a little bit different in dark mode to fit in nicely. You can see the little chicken feet that we like or don't or not, whatever. But also, so you can actually create these manually. You can say add a table. If you give it a name and say blah 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 blah, and add that table, and then boom, it's there. You can put it wherever you want to. You can delete it, edit it, blah blah. Oops, let's put it back to normal. Yeah, I messed it up. But now you know that you can actually do that too. Not that I would need to, but we can do that and zoom in and out here as well. You have these, buttons, go back to normal, see the whole thing. But again, we have diagram chat. So let's see if it's working. Create a horticulture. That's the first word that came to my mind. Management diagram. Just a simple one before it goes nuts. Sometimes it does, and it's like you're sitting here and you're like, toot, 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 toot. Again, it worked before and now it's not working. Honestly, I think what happened is that I had to fix something that I will show you in a minute. I'm not going to mention the person's name who asked for it, but I built what he asked. Oh, sorry. The person asked. I don't need to give anything away, not even the gender. Sorry about that. And that broke a lot of things, and I've been working on fixing it diligently, but I think I didn't check every possible element to make sure. So I will have to get to these and make sure that every one of them works. But same thing, it would basically just tell you, it would just basically give you a JSON rundown very quickly that like, this table, these are the fields, and then click a button and just dump it in here, and it would look just like this, just obviously a little bit different because it's a different database, different tables that are coming in here. So again, videos exist for these that you can see that it's working. Now, every one of these things now have this like add to project button, which adds them to this. We'll get to that in a moment. That's for deployment. We also have an SVG designer. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in here. I'm sure you know what that means. You can just say, describe your icon, create your little whatever you create. You can draw a sketch and say, blah, 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 generate something from that. You can upload a photo, generate something from that. Or you have 200,000 icons to pick from. So let's say trash can. So you can pick from quite a lot of trash cans and collect them. I wanted to see something cute, so I picked a panda the other day. And then you can prep it from FM, and then you can just download it and dump it into FM, and it looks just like this. Cool. Okay, next, connections. I made a video about this and posted it this morning, how you can ask questions about your data in Claude. So in here, in Claude, I asked the question, do we have any open orders? And I got the data back. So I'm not going to demo the whole thing because I have the video. You can, go and see it. It's posted on LinkedIn and Reddit and Facebook and everywhere. It's a super easy hookup. All you need to do is create a new token and then grab this link, dump it into Claude or the Claude AI settings connectors up here. And you can use it from Claude Desktop as well as Claude Mobile. So if you want to see that quickly, let me see if that's going to work very quickly. Because this is really, really cool. At least I am enjoying it thoroughly. How did I do this? Oh, up. Claude. And there you go. I had this. Same thing. Do we have any open orders? Or the count inquiry or boxes. It was really cute because it says, how many boxes do I have? I'm not sure what you mean by boxes. And then it's thought a little bit more. It could be a layout, a field, or a record type. Let me check what layouts are available first. And it says, oh, there's a box layout. Let me count the records in it. And it says, you have 19 boxes. So it's pretty smart. It figures out that if I'm asking this question, I'm not asking about boxes on the internet. I'm asking about boxes in my connection. So I think you guys are going to like this because you can take this on the go with you. It's connected and you're good to go. So there's that. Under connections, you have GitHub. So you can push your imported XML to GitHub and your live connection, which I'll get to in a minute, or GitLab if you work in government where they use GitLab or any other places where they use GitLab. You can now push your changes and then you can do the versioning and see what changed between the different snapshots that you upload. I call the XML snapshots because it's just nicer. The snapshots can also be auto created on server, so you don't even have to like manually do them. Here's your Figma. You set it up once here before, and then you can import them into whatever you are. I set up auto FMS, but at this point, we pretty much have almost all the features that they have, so we probably won't be needing it necessarily, but you can have it. And then we have cloud providers. So if you have, Google Cloud or Linode or Azure or AWS, you can connect these, and then you don't have to futz with SSH. It's just so much easier. Okay. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you really ready? This is my answer to your problems with Claris Connect. Because I've heard enough complaints about Claris Connect that I sat down and I said, there's gotta be something that we can do to give you guys something that's gonna be working and easier to use. So I have 90 plus connectors in here. I know you're clapping, but I can't hear it, so that's okay. But I also gave you Claris Studio because I know some people use it. And the basic core elements are here. They are grouped by the type of connector they are. However, you don't have to scroll because you can just search and say like, I'm looking for SP blah blah. Oh, I have USPS and HubSpot. Actually, I was trying to say ST blah blah. Oh, okay. I was trying to say STR blah blah. Hair stripe. And you can click on what you can do, and it will tell you what it can do at the moment. And then you can go and, connect, and they will tell you how to connect and what you need to establish that connection. Most of it is pretty easy. It will just tell you go to Stripe dashboard, developers, API keys, you get that. Obviously, you have to have an account. You have to, go and get that API key and then save that connection. Once you have that, you can use it in more than one places in here. I only have a Stripe connection here. Is disabled because I just don't want to be spammed about my own things, but this is what it looks like. It's super easy. In my case, it's an inbound webhook. I don't need to fill out everything because I just don't care. I have a webhook URL that I get generated. I have everything saved, so I don't need to do anything about it. But this is where it gets really cool. In my opinion, it gets even cooler. That like you set up whatever you want to work with, and then you can get notifications about it, and then you can hook it up to another thing. So in this case, we have, Slack and Discord, but I'm gonna soon change this out to any flow that you want, because I started with the free stuff initially because I didn't want to have to pay for your SMSs, your email service. Sorry, I hit the microphone. But now that I have all these flows set up, so you can set up your own email account and your own other services, Twilio and whatever, I can just swap this out and you can use that account once you set it up. So you can get notifications in whatever way you want about whatever flow you send. So if there's a problem, you can get instant notifications and you can come and fix it. But in this case, I have a Discord set up, and that's the connection that I'm getting notified about. So this is still using the flow, but it's using these flows. And you can get success or failure or both. Okay, so try these out. Let me know what you have, how much you like it. If you have any issues, let me know and I'll fix them right away. Unless I'm sleeping. So here's the run history. You can even replay them. It will tell you right away, whether it succeeded or failed. Okay, next, snapshots, another really cool feature, although I really do think most of these are really cool. Most of them are really, really cool. And here's why things broke, because we used to have only snapshots. And then I got somebody canceling the service saying, oh, I don't like to copy and paste. And I was like, really? You like programming, you like clicking, you like sitting on your butt all day, but don't like copying, pasting. I'm like, fine, I'll do something better. So I did something better, and I came up with Live Connect. And I will show you that in a minute, and I hope that it's not going to fail. But snapshots is what came first. Snapshots is when you go to your database and you go and save a copy as XML, and then you go in here, you create a new one, and then you upload a new version, aka you go and drop your XML file here, and it just processes it super fast. That's how you get this record in here, and that's what you can view in here. That's your settings table, my settings table, my user table, and my address table, my layouts, my scripts, my functions, value lists, diagram, whatever. Okay, that black is kind of ugly. I'll fix that. But this is the same kind of diagram viewer that we have. It's a little simpler because we don't need to edit this right here in this particular version. But I wanted to take this further. But also we have search now here too, by the way. And you can type, whatever you want. And then it will show you what it finds for tables, fields, value lists, and table occurrences, scripts, whatever, for the letters that you typed. And then you can click on that, and it will take you to whatever that is. If it's doing the right job. I think it did, just I can't see where it is. Okay. So we thought this was kind of, 1989, let's do something better. So let me see what I have open, a spider. Let's hope that it's gonna work, because this is where it should be. And I'm not gonna connect because, well, actually I could connect, but I have it connected anyway. But what this does, it's using the plugin that I have installed. Application. Yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna go there. You know where the plugin lives, right? Right? Extensions. So I have a plugin, and I'm working on a Windows versions. For now, it's just Mac, but it should work on the newest Mac as well. That can actually connect to multiple files. Okay, so I have 2 files that are open on my computer, and then you can connect to all 2 of them. If I have 2 files, I might just only have 1, but I don't need to look at this right now. But if I connected, it will give me a screen underneath where it will show me the log of the connection, because I want to see logs. I want to see what's happening. I want to be able to really see what's happening. And then it will create a set of the files, because you could have 50 files. I don't have that many files, but I know people who do. So we created a set with a name and a date on it. And in that, you have 2 files. And this is still a little bit of a work in progress, because I don't want to have to activate and deactivate every one of them one by one, or just this or just that. So I'm still working on this particular thing. But what this does is you can search both of them at once. So now if I type, let's say, DE in here, it can show you that this is in order. Oops. Let me try something else. AD, I don't know. No results for AD. Or that's in order. Yeah, it's order. It should and will search in all of the apps or databases that have been added in here. Same thing as everywhere. You can actually delete one if you don't want all of these in the set. So you don't have to just, do this one by one. You can again view, or actually we also have analyze, so you can do this, but this is a very little thing. So it's very, very clean and beautiful, 100% healthy. I have not seen that before. Yay! It will tell you what's in it, best practices, naming conventions, table health, relationship health, field health, scripts, stats, whatnots. I'm sure you guys will criticize the hell of it, and that's fine. Please send me emails, send me messages from the website. Let me know how you don't like this, and I will fix it. Next, here's your GitHub connection. So you can do this and say, okay, I want to push that. And you can do more in the live, because that's why we did live. So what Snapshot does is that, and I'm running out of time, Snapshot basically is a one-way street, right? You bring an XML in, and then now you can view it. And I wanted to take it further. I wanted to be able to go back to FileMaker. I wanted to be able to make changes in Dojo and then push them back to FileMaker, because we have the tools for it. And I wanted to make it super simple and super easy for everybody. So I can add the table here. And I have done that. I have added the table called Gummy. So let's say I'm going to add the table called Bumpy. You can add starter fields, matching table occurrence, stage the change. Okay. And here we go. Boom. Bumpy, 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 bumpy. And that's it. I can also have an agent in here too. So I could tell the agent to actually add the table, add fields, add the script, whatever. I can't say it's perfect. It's a work in progress. Every time I see something that I don't like, I fix it. The only way things are gonna get better if you guys use it and tell me how to make it better. I can't do everything on my own. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. But the part of going back is working. So I'm going to say push to FM. and you select the server. If you don't have that set up, I mean, sometimes, you do, but say, okay, FMDev. And by the way, nothing's either, if something is saved, it's encrypted or not saved or saved per session. So, you don't have to worry about things being just kind of loosey-goosey in the air. It's documented, and so I mean, this shouldn't even be here. What's my this actually shouldn't even be here because I have a setup. So I'm gonna check something is not all that perfect here either, because they should just be able to pick from the deploy setup unless the deploy got deleted, which is possible. Or you can just, believe me that this basically pushed the data all into that. You know what? I'll just show you something, because no, I deleted the gummy. Just believe me, okay? Or try it and you'll see that it will push everything that I created in here. It's using the, for schema, the FM upgrade tool and the DTMF, FileMaker, FMDT, FileMaker, FMDT. Let's just leave it at that. So it will do that. And here's your server, scheduled push that you can set up from here. Let's move on because time is of essence. FileMaker server admin, this is where you set up the server, so you can go add server, and then you can even dedicate one to production tested development, which is going to be important for the migration setup. And here's where you can set up SSH, or you select, an account that you have set up. In my case, it's just, Google. And then you have all these beautiful things that we have here. So I have a few accounts set up. That's my, test server that I use for basically all the beautiful things that I do with FMDojo. You can edit all of this right from here. You can turn off data API, turn on off data API, web direct, and I have FM OData coming. OData is actually set up and connected. You can check for updates, which we had to do by going to the FileMaker, Claris website. Once we get an email that there's a new update for server, you gotta go and download it. Then you gotta put it on the server. Then you gotta go and install it. Then you gotta restore the server and do all that jazz. This will check for updates, and if there's an update, you can install it from right here, and it will do everything for you. Okay, clapping. That's pretty cool. I like it, at least. So you can basically manage your server right from here. Here are a list of databases. You can do pretty much everything from here. All the files, and you can even upload files right from here. Not just one, any number of files. So you don't have to do it from FileMaker Pro anymore. So wherever you are, you don't have FileMaker Pro with you, upload your files. Clients, I don't have any open, but if I had open, it would be the same thing as the files. Schedules, I don't have one, but I can create one now from here. Logs, this is one of my favorites. I know somebody copied it after I came up with it, but I don't really care anymore. It's just gonna be how it is. People like something and then everybody else is gonna do the same thing. Or maybe we all dreamt it up at the same time. I'm not accusing anyone. But I thought this would be cool if I could just look at a last hour and find something that, let's say, in the OData or the top call or the WPE, any of them, or journal CTL, would show me why the hell that server crashed or what happened to that file, right? A lot of things we just can't figure out. At least I will take it on myself that I can't figure out sometimes why something happened. And I look at one log and it just doesn't tell me something except file closed. And it's just, But if I can dig deeper on the server, then eventually I could figure it out. So now I can look at all these logs at the same time and filter for that particular file name. And then I can get a little more information. Or I can even analyze that log and say, I just want errors only or full analysis. Or I can even ask one specific question about it. And it will just go and do the job unless it fails. But nope, there you go. So it will give me some information about what's been happening. I'm not going to waste time on it. Just you can do it yourself, but it's working. Commands. For the expert, you type whatever you want here, and you can issue that command, okay? Start, whatever. Here you go. Start server command. Actually, it will give you all these. You want to start the server, you should say start server, and you say run. I'm not going to do that right now. But if you don't know how to use these commands, you find them from here. You can even like try to figure out, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to reset my password. Okay. How do I reset my password? Let's click that and say, okay, reset the file, make it FMS admin reset password. I don't have to type FMS admin because it's the same for everyone. May affect connected clients. Okay, use this command. How do I use this command? Put it out there. Okay, reset password. Run. I'm not going to run that. I'll run something that I can actually demo. What would that be a good one to demo? But all of them are here. So you can do security. You can do get config. There you go. Let's just do this one. Okay, run. And there you go. That's just not the right answer, I think. Might not be the right command, but let's do something else. Oh, status or list. There you go, list. I like that one. Let's do list files. Boom. And then you get the files back. I think it's much faster than going to the server admin, logging, or like, going to SSH, logging in, and then issuing these commands. It's just right here. If you're going to be working here, might as well do all of this here. And here are your shell commands as well. So you're going to do bash or even WinRM. If you get disconnected, you can issue Windows, whatever that's called. I forgot the Windows commands here as well. WinRM setup, also pretty simple. We tested it and it's working. Same, if you change your, username, you can do it from here. Backups, really, really cool that I have a restore here and I have an even better version. This is not fully tested, so that's not visible to you guys, but you have this where you can say, that's not even a real file, but let's say spider. Here's your file, and let's say that it's not opening because it is damaged. So you can say, I want to disconnect the, actually, if you have a damaged file, then this is not even, important. If you have a damaged file, you can choose to keep it or not. If you have a damaged file, it's going to be closed, so this doesn't matter either. You can import the records or not, or bring back a copy from an hour ago. But if it's not damaged, but you deleted a record or deleted a lot of records, and you want to bring something back from those records back from the last copy, but you want to keep the new records as well, this will take care of that for you. So it will import the data from the current file and then merge it in with the backup. So this is pretty cool because you can do it with one button right from here. So in a way, this is a full-fledged disaster recovery, I think. And this was going to be even better. So I'll let you know. This is going to be the whole process of like close, move aside, copy, backup, merge records, reopen, blah, blah, and roll back on any failure. Alerts, Halloween time. Okay, you can do disk usage alerts, backup failure. We have watchdog alerts, and then notifications, the basic ones, Slack, Discord, blah, blah, blah. But now you can basically do any flows that you set up here that can do messaging. So it says no flows yet, create one to get started. So this one's already hooked up to create an SMS setup. So you can get notified about server problems before your users complain. Okay, I think this is very important nowadays. SSL, full SSL management, even with Let's Encrypt, and it will restart your server. And I implemented Wim's version of no port 80 required. So I think it's as good as it gets. Mine has my own certificate installed because I have my own hosting. Sorry, a little advertisement, radfm.com. But if you don't, you can generate your CSR or do and get your SSL certificate from wherever you want to, or use the free Let's Encrypt, which will do the job just fine. Okay, what else do we have in here? Nothing. So let's move on to FMDeploy. Is for one file deploy, which is what I'm using now in eventually design. It's kind of sort of working. I would not rely on it completely, not fully tested, I'm just saying, but it works for projects. It works for the snapshot push. So when I said that I put a table called Gummy in from here and I pushed it into Spider, that's what did it, the FMDeploy. It fully created that particular deploy in here. And it tells you the entire run, that deploy run complete. This is not fake. This is actually completely real. And it uses basically creating a patch and everything automatically. So you don't have to do it on the computer manually. It will do all the work for you. It knows the directory, it knows everything. It finds the patch file, it creates everything for you, and it will patch it in, and it will close the file or reopen the file, and it's just back in business. Okay. I think this is pretty cool, but for multiple files from server to server, I'm working on this. You don't have this yet. Hopefully in a few days you will. This is where we're going to go with this, where you're going to be able to make changes here and then from one server go to the other server. And very soon you're going to have the 3 servers set up as well. But you can actually, do the work right here and then go multi-file, multi-server setup. The test should be working. That was working last night. So I'm going to keep my fingers closed and crossed and hopeful a full connection test. And I'll show you what that does, or I'll tell you what that does while it's doing it. It tests both servers and it checks for the tools to make sure that everything is ready for whatever you need. Oh, this wasn't pushed out. This was tested locally last night, but this is working as well. So all the tools, should be ready to make sure that we can do the migration. So this will be pushed out, and this is going to work soon as well. See in the announcements. So projects is where you collect all the elements. You can add the script from whatever scripts you have. Diagrams. I think scripts and snippets I might want to combine, or maybe I call them code pieces. And this is deployable, so that was basically ready. And then here's deploy, and here's the history if you have done anything, but this hasn't been deployed yet. Okay, tools. This is not super exciting for enhanced developers, except this part. This has not been fully done, so it should not be visible. If it is, I apologize, but if you want, you can help me test it. Some of it is, some of it isn't, but you are welcome to try and play with every one of them. Expert people can do this on their own. Other people are like, hey, this is so cool, because I can just basically copy this code and it will generate my preferred code based on blah blah. Actually, that should just be numbers. So there's my code. I can copy the XML, paste it into FileMaker, and then I will just create my code how I want it in whatever size and blah blah. So you can go and take this. This is very cool though, I think. Describe your data model and I'll generate a schema. And it will generate different CSV files for the time being, and it's partly built, but for now, it will give you separate CSV files that you can download and import yourself. But I will finish it to be able to push that automatically into your server file, so you don't even have to, worry about doing that manually as well. But for now, you could just say, I want customers, and then say, generate. And if the gods are willing, we have a, here's what it's going to create. Does it look good? Sure, fine. And then download 20 records. There it is, customers, boom, done. I'm not going to do that, but that's how that works. Okay. This is going to be really, really cool once this works, because then you can pretty much create whatever add-on you want yourself. Um, I wish I had my history because I've done a couple of things, and it's almost done. And there's one thing that I reached out to the Claris team, and I'm hoping that they will help out. I'm not going to name the person. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but there's one piece that's missing to be able to fully automate it so nobody has to touch it. But in the meantime, there's one step that you guys are going to have to do, but everything else is automated. So I am super excited about it. I can't wait to roll it out.
Agnes, we have about 5 minutes.
Yes, I know.
Got it.
Yep. I'm pretty much done. So, what few more things left. This is again not super exciting, especially since now I have the SVG designer. So I think I can even take this out of here. This is cool because a lot of us, spend a lot of time trying to get clients tell us who should have access to what. So this will make it easier for you guys. This is for advanced developers. You create this and say, whatever, apples. Perhaps two peas would be nice, right? And you say, I want some tables, apple, and you add that. And then you say, blah, 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 blah. And then you share it with a client, and the client will have to fill it out. Okay. And then you just take it from there. But you can also print it out as well. But it's just easier if you create all the tables in here and give it to them to do the work. I don't have, obviously everything in here because we don't have the field, but eventually I can hook it up to a database that you add as well. So they can really do all the work themselves, and then they can just send it back to you. Or like once they do it, you will have it. So once if Claris allows us to bring this back in, which I think they're working in some things for the next version, we'll see how that works for the version after that. I think we'll really be in a much better place. And I'm willing to do the work if they are willing to do the work. All right, next. I don't know how much of this is for the top level developers, but we have 424 training lessons. So go knock yourselves out and refresh your knowledge, have fun. I was told by people who tried this that it's much better, not coming from me, coming from other people who will admit it on video, that they've tried video lessons, they tried Claris training, they tried everything, and it's usually the same thing. Create a table, build it, make a field, set this up, set that up, whatever. And this is very different. So they like this because the very basics are usually like self-learnable. So this will give them a different view on things and teach them faster. And then we have trivia, which is free. So you can play, it's 10 questions, 30 seconds that are timed, and then you also can, collect tokens. You actually get tokens for the learning part as well. So you can see that people are, playing with it, have fun, it's free. You can tell all your friends to play it if you'd like. Docs, very important for everybody. Please go through this because you need to know the features so you're not missing out on something, because while you're paying for token use, basically a lot of the features you're getting for free. So you should be using them. And I learned from a lot of people that they're mostly just using chat. And that's just a waste of your money and a waste of my work. So go and use the features and give me feedback and tell me how I can make this better for you, because you're the one who's using it. You can request features here. You can let me know about the issues. Don't worry about it being public. I don't care. It's on GitHub. Everybody can see it. And if you like it, leave me a review. You can contact me right here or anywhere you like. And here's all your, underneath here is your dashboard. You can set up teams, so you can buy a package for everybody at your company, and you can adjust how many tokens you would like and how many seats you would like. Sliders, super easy. There's your account, lots of stuff that you can adjust here. AI preferences are very cool. You can adjust your response style, your concise mode. You can actually add your version so you can get like better response. And then you can even add your custom chat instructions. Change your password, add two-factor authentication, there's your nickname for trivia, and I think we have 1 minute. Change your theme here. Check your sessions if you'd like to log yourself out somewhere. If you have trouble, there's your subscription. You can upgrade, downgrade, do whatever you like from here. Switch to team, and it's 15 minutes. So billing will take you to Stripe. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed, and I apologize for the glitches.
Thank you for the demonstration today, Agnes. What a it's an ambitious tool. It touches so many of the areas that we work in. So I hope you're able to keep people in the community kind of up to date with the massive amount of, hey, we're working on this, we're working on this, later we're hoping to have this. Sounds like you have a pretty good backlog of future enhancements that are going to be worth looking at as well.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
The we are now going to pivot into we have just a brief kind of announcements area right now, and then we'll be going into the breakout rooms and we'll be coming back with Chris Moyer. From the announcements standpoint, I want to start by just kind of announcing to the group we've had a change in the FMDiSC board. Our dear friend Matt Navarre has been challenged. It's been challenging both time zone and other commitments that he has. It's been hard for him to kind of stay on the board right now. So he is stepping down. And in that vein, we also have, I think, Elizabeth, are you here?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Excellent. So we have an
I got
announcement
this
on the
little.
heels of that. Elizabeth, one of our board members, has a fun little announcement to share.
So I'm very, very pleased to be able to announce that we are welcoming to the FMDiSC board my friend and colleague, Lisette Wilson, likely a friend and colleague to many of the people on this call. Lisette, if you're here, pop in and say hi. And she might have
I'm here. I'm just like muted and hidden and all sorts of stuff. But
great.
hi, there you are.
Hi. So that's Lisette. We'll have an interview with Lisette later in the season, but we just wanted to welcome you and let everyone know that you're joining the ranks, and we're so pleased to have you. Back to you, Dave.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Welcome aboard, Lisette. We're very thrilled to be having you. We also, I know that the folks at Full Access want to give us an update on their schedule. I think we also have some Claris people in the audience. I don't know if they have anything noteworthy to share, but let's go. John and/or Dennis?
I'm here. Do you want me to start my video?
Oh, you're trying to do a video.
Well, I was going to share my screen, but also my face. It depends what you want to look at.
Why don't we keep this just to a verbal announcement? We weren't prepared for a video presentation at the moment. Thank you.
All right. So I'm here to just announce that we are now 90 days ahead of the beginning of Full Access on the 6th of August. I see a lot of names and faces in today's group that I recognize. Many of you are already registered for this year's Full Access. Those of you who were with us last year will remember that we really had a great conference. This year, it's the only conference for the FileMaker community on the calendar because Claris is not doing DevCon or Engage this year. We're at the same place we were at last year, which is really a wonderful venue. It turned out to be very, very different from what you normally experience in a hotel. It's more like a college campus, the Jesuit Retreat Center in Los Altos. I had a map of the California area that I was going to put up if you allow me to share my screen, but it's really not necessary if you don't want to. The California location should appeal to many of you who are here today because you'll be able to get there on the road without having to fly. Those of you who are east of California, and I'm thinking of Tony in particular, I produced a rideshare app to help people who arrive and want to get to Los Altos from either of the 3 Bay Area airports, San Jose, Oakland, or San Francisco. And you would have access to that immediately after you register for the conference so that you can hook up with other people. That's also encouraging people who were traveling from the East to think about arriving the night before so that you don't miss the conference with your ground transportation getting to Los Altos from the airport. And I see some of the faces who are there have already spoken about the wonderful time they had. It really was different from a hotel-oriented conference. The location was very peaceful, tranquil. The food was great. Everybody had single rooms for themselves. I see Rick nodding, so I know Rick doesn't lie. He had a good time, and there were going to be more Claris attendees this year than there were last year. We had Clay Mackle and Rick Howman, and Ryan McCann made a guest appearance for one afternoon. But we're going to have more Claris attendees this year. Full access has sort of taken off where pause on error left over, or where took over where pause on error left off. And I think we're becoming more of an annual event year after year. We're already looking at what we're going to do for 2027. I think it was Dave who made a remark early on about the ratio of men to women. And it's true, last year we were a male-dominated crowd. Becca Ingram, who works for Seed Code, was awarded the grand prize for the evening when we played FileMaker Jeopardy because she made a wonderful bourbon-enhanced speech about what it's like to be a woman among 51 old white guys. So, this year, I'm happy to see, as I look at the attendee list, that the ratio is much better than it was last year. And anybody who is female need not fear being among so many old white guys. We're very protective of all of our attendees. The food was good. The atmosphere is wonderful. We had a lot of fun in the evening, and we're going to do that again. There's a new round of FileMaker Jeopardy already in preparation. And I don't have to add much more to it. I know there's some people here who might want to speak after I leave, and I do have to leave quickly, so I'll just share this one experience with you.
Dennis, we kind of need to wrap this up. We're running a little bit late, so I'm wondering if you have a resource, either a URL or a website or a link that we can go to.
The URL is fullaccess.us, and that will show you those of us who have already registered, the sessions that are already planned, and a page where you can register for your own attendance. And I also have to leave quickly, so you're welcome to talk about me. I've always found that to be productive in my career when I leave the room, and good things happen when I exit. And anybody who wants to add to what I've already said, I see some of those faces here and they can do it. Thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you, Dennis. Rick, I see Rosemary here. Anything coming out of headquarters that is fun to share?
Yeah, I just dropped a link into chat. If you have not seen it, there was a blog post from Ryan McCann on Tuesday morning that nicely fits into the bookends of this meeting from what Agnes shared at the beginning and what Bob's going to share at the end. And it's essentially talking about what our plans are for the agentic coding era as it relates to FileMaker. Pretty exciting stuff. And then we'll be moving fast and furious. We'll do a community live at the end, or a webinar at the end of May, and then begin pushing stuff out through the summer. So take a look at that if you haven't seen it already.
Excellent. Thank you. And FYI, the FMDiSC board is always in cahoots with Claris. We're always knocking on Rick's door going, hey, anything coming? And can we get you to obviously present to us or bring any nuggets forward? So we're looking forward to some of the exciting things that are happening at Claris and shining a light on them here within the group. I think any other announcements? Otherwise, we're going to break into our breakout room. We've got a shorter break today, and then we'll be coming back with Mr. Chris Moyer to talk about the tech news roundup that we cover every month, which is great. So I'm going to pause the recording, turn you guys loose in the breakout rooms, and we'll be back in a handful of minutes. Resume recording. There we go.
What I'm here for.
There we go. The redoubtable Mr. Chris Moyer is here with tales of fantasy, reality, and horror at times. but always inviting, always inspiring, and so forth. So take us on a tour, Mr. Moyer.
Okay, I shall do so. Let me hit play. Everyone can see my screen.
We got it.
All right, welcome to the May edition of the Tech News Roundup. And usually I do this sort of newspaper style where I put the most highest gravity story first, but this month I wanted to do the most fun story first because um, some of you may or may not be familiar with the Toto toilet people. One of their favorite features is that it opens its mouth to greet you when it wants you to walk up and pee in its mouth, which I thought was hilarious somehow, this anthropomorphic toilet. And so I was delighted to hear that they have capitalized on the AI data center boom. And Toto is going to help us with the RAM crisis. And so at first I thought it was a hilarious story. And then as I read into it, it's like these are people who have advanced ceramics technology. They produce components used in memory chips, and that business has exploded during the chip shortage. And so kudos to them, but their stock has taken off because the toilet maker is also an essential component maker for RAM chips, and I think that's great. Next up, a lot of you probably heard this story that a Claude Power AI coding agent, they were using Cursor. Cursor was running Claude. Claude was talking to an infrastructure provider called Railway. And there's this whole elaborate story that Claude ran into some authentication issue and said, well, I better just delete this volume and rebuild it. And they deleted the volume that the production server was on. And this was a misconfiguration on Railway's part that, or whoever set up Railway, that their backups were also on that same volume. So when it smoked the volume, it smoked the backups. And apparently, Railway really had to scramble to recover these. They deleted them immediately. And so it was a whole big mess. And then they eventually did get their database back, but the uh, company was Pocket OS. They do the checkout systems for rental car companies and stuff like that. Anyway, big problem. Got a lot of press about how AI brought down this company's production database server, but it was a whole series of errors that did it. And it wasn't just the AI, although the AI did make it a bad call. Anyway, moving on. I just ran across this. I guess this has been out in the scuttlebutt for a while, but so for those of you who use Chrome and have more than, say, 22 gig of available space, Chrome has been quietly, and this is the part that has everybody ticked off, has basically downloaded this file that you can see here, weights.bin. Um, and if you go to this support link, you can get a little more detail on it. But basically, it's Gemini Nano. It's a on-device AI model. It's part of Google's push to integrate AI directly into the browser. And so Chrome relies on these weights to run generative AI features locally on your machine. And a lot of people are like, well, this is a privacy violation, whatnot. And it's actually the opposite of that. If you type in a request that you're looking for something and Nano itself is sufficient to the task of answering it, then you're actually not sending something up to the cloud. You're actually processing it locally. So it's actually more private to do it this way. Um, but this will be on Mac OS 13 or later, on Windows 10 or 11. It will run on models with a GPU or a CPU. Anyway, it's a thing. And so here's a statement from Google that says we've offered it from Chrome since 2024. It's a lightweight on-device model, powers security capabilities like scam detection, things like that. So it seems to be on the up and up. There has been some hubbub about this, and I just thought I'd set the record straight. Oh, and for those of you who want to find it, you can fire up Chrome if you want to look for this and see if it's on your machine here. We could all do this as a little group exercise. Fire up Chrome, go to this URL, chrome:// on device internals, and you may have to enable this setting in your Google settings, but if you do, there'll be three tabs that come up. Click on the Model Status tab, and if this thing is on your device, you will be able to see it here. And if you choose to uninstall it, say, no, I don't want this thing's taking up 4 gig of RAM or hard drive space on my device, you can kick it off. But if you just drag it off, then it will get reinstalled. But if you come in here and explicitly shut it off, then it stays off. So anyway, that's the skinny on that. Some of you are probably aware that Elon Musk has sued OpenAI and Sam Altman, and I think the co-founder Brockman as well. This lawsuit was filed back in 2024. It's now in court. Musk has been asking for the removal of Altman and Brockman from AI. He wants OpenAI to stop operating as a public benefit corporation. He wants $150 billion in damages. And Musk has already testified. OpenAI co-founder Brockman has already testified. I think Satya Nadella is scheduled to testify coming Monday. Ilya Sutskever is lined up to testify after that. And all sorts of stuff has been coming out of this. So this is a text exchange between Sam Altman and Mira Murati at the time of when Sam Altman was getting ousted by the board. And so all sorts of juicy details have been coming out about this. Not that I would ever traffic in such gossip, but it's out there if any of you are interested in. The Verge is doing sort of a running commentary on this. These text messages were found in a Reddit post about the OpenAI lawsuit. Next up, there on Hugging Face, there is now an app store for robot stuff. So Hugging Face bought a robot company called Reachy Mini. It's a like $299 open source physical robot. It debuted last July. It comes in two versions. There's a $449 wireless onboard compute version that has a Raspberry Pi as its brain, or you can get a $299 version that uses your Mac or PC as its brain. You just tether it with a USB cable. And they've sold about 10,000 of these things so far. And so now they have a whole basically online recipe book for all sorts of different applications you can use with this thing. Here's what the robot looks like, kind of fun looking, but interesting sort of wrinkle coming from Hugging Face, who's really not known for this. And this is just a random factoid that I came across and thought I'd share. Asphalt. So everyone familiar with asphalt? There is a Global Futures Laboratory at Arizona State University. They do pavement research, and they have spent some years studying why asphalt breaks down so quickly. And the work pointed them to volatile organic compounds that escape from bitumen, which is the sticky tar-like stuff that holds it all together. And so if you're an asphalt worker, long-term exposure can elevate the risk of lung cancer. Major concern for construction workers who are breathing this stuff in all the time without a respirator for the most part, because they're usually working in the heat. Asphalt begins releasing different, more toxic strains of volatile organic compounds as it breaks down further in sunlight and heat, which tends to happen down in Arizona. So they have come up with something where they're actually using algae in lieu of the bitumen, and they've basically invented algae-based asphalt that could prove to be much healthier for people to work with and for long-term exposure. This was an interesting thing. So AI has been out there doing all sorts of stuff. There's AlphaFold, and it's finding new materials and stuff like that. And so they sicked LLMs on Alzheimer's research, and they have identified appendix removal and diet as Alzheimer's risks. I don't want to get into a whole bunch of it, but it gets into the gut-brain interaction mechanism. And so it's on Neuroscience News. Check it out for those of you who are concerned about your diet and or family history of Alzheimer's. This is an odd one. So the White House released an app. I think every administration has released some sort of White House app. And this is from Android Headlines. And recently, the White House launched their own official app on iOS and Android. And security researchers immediately pounced on this and tore it apart, and it's asking for all sorts of crazy permissions. It's a React Native build using Expo SDK 54, has WordPress in it, custom REST API, all standard stuff. But the app has a full GPS tracking pipeline compiled in, set to poll your location every 4.5 minutes in the foreground. Every 9.5 minutes, if it's in the background, it's syncing latitude, longitude, accuracy, timestamp data to a service called OneSignal servers. Um, None of these local permissions are declared in the Android manifest. They're hard-coded in runtime requests. And the app is loading JavaScript from some random person's GitHub site for YouTube embeds. And so just from a so none of this, it feels very sketchy, very thrown together. It injects JavaScript and CSS into every page you visit in the app browser, strips away cookie consent dialogues, GDPR banners, paywalls, all sorts of stuff. So this thing's a nightmare. Don't touch it unless you're sandboxing it. So this is the Shiny Hunters and Extortion Gang. They went after Canvas, who is, I guess, a wholly owned company from a company called Instructure. They work with a lot of higher education institutions, and so they have claimed that they have almost 9,000 schools, 275 million individuals, college students for the most part. So if you have college students using Canvas, they probably got nabbed by this. This is posted on Bleeping Computer. The threat actor claims the data was stolen using Canvas data export features, including DAP queries, provisioning reports, and user APIs. And they harvested hundreds of gigabytes of user records, messages, and enrollment data. Instructure has not responded to emails for comment, but universities have begun issuing statements. Colorado University at Boulder has said that they discovered that this breach has happened, and other colleges have as well. This is another one of my favorite stories this month. Many of you have heard of a Flipper Zero. It's an experimental device, but it's basically a hacking tool. People have like driven by Teslas and popped open the door by talking to the Tesla and making the gas door open up and stuff like that. Fun stuff, generally harmless, but those dynamic pricing tags that you find at places like Target and stuff like that. Um, the phenomena of retailers using personal data to do surge pricing, basically, if stock is running low or adjust the price for a person. Everybody loves surveillance pricing. It's very popular, and I say that facetiously. So if you've been sort of watching this trend, perhaps with disgust, you might be interested to hear about something called Tag Tinker, which I have linked. There's a GitHub repo down here purely for experimental purposes only or in educational purposes. You would never want to use this to load onto your Flipper Zero and go mess with tags at the stores. So these tags are called electronic shelf labels. And this thing is for exploring ESL protocols. And it even allows you to transmit a custom image, such as this one, to a TS or an ESL. Some varieties of these ESLs don't use Bluetooth, they don't use Wi-Fi or anything modern or secure. And it's just plain old infrared, just like you would use for the old TV remote controls. And so Flipper Zeros are particularly good at this transmission methodology. And so you can talk to tags on a shelf in a store that's doing surge pricing. Kind of fun. Next up, this is an odd one. There's strong political tones to which party supports privacy versus not. So this is a Republican-sponsored bill that it's the Yoda Act, which was introduced on May the 4th, of course. And the bill is designed to give individuals more control over how companies can share their data. So it's similar to the recent Surveillance Accountability Act. And so this is sort of being labeled as an unexpected privacy-related Republican bill. So there you go. I'm here for it. This is a fun one. I don't know how many of you had to read Brave New World back in high school with the future, and they had a movie going experience they called the Feelies, where you would put your hand on these like electrodes in your movie seat, and you could like taste or feel wind on your face and things like that. It was the Feelies, and so. In terms of immersive virtual reality experiences, they've never been able to do smell very well because it's a completely different mechanism. But a group of independent researchers in California, they're not like affiliated with a single institution. They are truly independent researchers. Um, and they have a prototype that uses focused ultrasound to target the olfactory bulb in your nose. It's used for processing smell, does not rely on chemicals, cartridges, airborne compounds. It sends ultrasonic waves through the skull to stimulate your olfactory bulb. And so they've been able to induce smells like burning wood, fresh air, ozone, decaying organic material. Um, and so they've been just sort of messing around with a uh, sonogram where they're trying to sort of figure out where the targeting is and what's vibrating, and then they're sort of steering the thing to um, get it where it needs to go. And so they've had some weird findings, like breathing influenced how the effects were perceived. If you're doing light inhalation, it tended to make the smells stronger. So participants were instructed to gently sniff while holding the device to their forehead. They basically had this vibrating bulb they stuck on their forehead and it would hit their nose. Um, the sensation could build gradually over several breaths. Anyway, it's just a weird sort of story. You should check it out because it's a fun one. So have a look. Next up, living plastic. This is a good one. So this was at the Shenzhen Institutes of Advanced Technology in China. They have developed a plastic with a built-in kill switch. They basically have an engineered bacteria, Bacillus subtilis, which is a common soil bacteria. It remains inactive during normal use. And then they have this kind of soup that they can soak this stuff in. It has an enzyme. And so once you're done drinking the plastic or using the plastic, you can put it in this whatever soupy compound it is, and the thing will completely dissolve in 6 days, and like not even there. And it's not like plastics disintegrating in the ocean turn into microplastics. This just completely takes it down to the um, molecular level, and so it breaks up all the molecular chains and uh, makes it not a problem at all. So when the plastic was placed in the nutrient broth and heated to 122 degrees, so not terribly hot, the spores activated and the film fully degraded into nothing. So yay team. And oh, there's a little chart about how it works from the research paper. So that lower link there is the actual link to the research paper that gets into this. And that is the tech news for May.
Great job as always, Chris. Thanks for that.
Sure.
Some nice news in the this
I
particular
know. I was trying to
episode.
stay away from all the horror and
Yeah. It's nice to have some
world.
upswing stuff in there on occasion, right?
Yes.
Hey, our next session is quite something. I got to sit with Bob, and he kind of ran me through what he's doing. And me personally, guess what? I love digging in to the hardcore tech topics, but I also love a good story. I love hearing how somebody got from point A to point B. Bob has got this really compelling story, and his travel, and we get to kind of perch ourselves on his shoulder and let him take us for a ride. So, with no further ado, Mr. Bob Shockey.
Thanks, Dave. Can I let me see, let me share my screen. Can everyone see Clark Griswold?
Got him.
All
Yes.
right. All right, let me just get rid of these floating meeting controls. And all right. and please mute yourselves. So I chose Clark Griswold as the mascot for this because he's naively optimistic. He's like a lot of characters in movies that we've come to adore. But Clark Griswold seemed to stand out for this one for me. And um, the subtitle of this, A Naive Approach to Vibe, read Autonomous Coding, will become clear to you as I go along. Let me tell you a little bit about myself first. I am the president of Alchemy Group. I've been a FileMaker developer since version 2, right around the time that these stones were planted. I became a full-time pro developer in 1999. I've spoken at DevCon a few times. I'm a frequent FMDiSC presenter. Some of you have probably seen me here before. And I'm a family man. I'm an artist. I love to travel, and I love dogs. So there's my family there. That's my daughter and her boyfriend, and myself and my wife Bonnie. Um, and as far as the dogs go, this is what a dog party looks like at my house when a dog has a birthday. Two of these dogs are guests, and they're all focusing on a dog-friendly birthday cake, which is why they're all looking in the same direction with such alertness. So a little bit about what you're going to see today. You're going to see a process very much in a linear timeline. I'm going to give you the reason for the project and some assumptions I made versus what proved to be true, what the experience was like. You'll see a demo of where I ended up with this and some results and takeaways. So if I'm going to take you on this journey with me, it's important that you understand what drove me. So I'm going to take a little time and dig in on what this is all about because it's important. Um, and it's all about diseases of the inner ear, which can affect balance and hearing, among other things, but mainly balance and hearing. And the two that get diagnosed most often for people who have a certain combination of symptoms are called vestibular migraine, and the other one is Meniere's disease. They're very similar in character. Vestibular migraine has fewer symptoms than Meniere's disease has. But Meniere's disease can be very debilitating. You can have sudden and severe vertigo episodes, nausea, tinnitus, which is very constant and loud, hearing loss, noise sensitivity, and this thing called oral fullness, which imagine what it's like having water in your ear after you swim, only all the time. And if you want to know what the vertigo is like, imagine that time in college when you didn't know any better and you got so drunk that it almost killed you and what that felt like. That's what the vertigo feels like. Um, and it's all the only way that people know they have it is by differential diagnosis. In other words, by what symptoms they have. That's because there is no cause that's known. It's totally unknown. There's no cure in sight, and it affects about a 0.5% to 1% of the human population. Around 700,000 Americans have been diagnosed. 45,000 annually are diagnosed with this disease. Um, and most sufferers end up deaf in the affected ear. So a little bit about that. Oops, let me go back up. Sorry. Usually, in most people, it affects only one ear. Some people get bilateral disease, which can obviously be much worse. The vertigo episodes, like I said, they can happen very unexpectedly. So that kind of affects people who have it not wanting to go out in public, not wanting to go far from their homes, not wanting to go out alone. So it can have some effect on lifestyle. Some people have constant vertigo 24/7. It's highly unpredictable and it's very inconsistent, which makes it even more difficult to manage. Um, it can be probably characterized first and foremost by its unpredictability. Meniere's disease can. It takes a deep toll. Here, this is a quote from a nurse who did some research back in the 70s, not just on Meniere's disease, but on people with chronic diseases that are not that don't follow a predictable pattern. Unpredictable illness involves chronic sorrow and illness-related grief that is present, oriented, and recurrent. Each flare-up is experienced as a new loss, and each period of remission can bring a confusing, cruel hope that the disease has finally stabilized, only to have that be shattered by the next time it happens. And this constant oscillation between hope and acceptance is exhausting. I think that's a very true statement. Um, so talking about the need, this chaotic disease that can flare up for no apparent reason, things that seem to work one day don't work the next, and no two patients are alike. People start comparing symptoms, and they don't all jibe together as far as what causes it, what the triggers are, especially. Um, these are some common ones: caffeine, stress, salt intake, barometric pressure changes is an important one, and there's many more. Sometimes as individual as the people who have it. So this is where we start getting into the need is how do we track those things? How do we keep track of what things are causing my episodes and what are the factors that really feed into it? It's hard to do. Um, and so like I said, every app starts with a need. And the reason I built this one, or the reason I started building apps around this, is I am one of those clients because I have Meniere's disease. And it was important for me to be able to deal with this disease. And I started looking for a way to do that. Um, I wanted to create something that I and others like me could use. And I really want to emphasize others like me. I didn't want to just create something for myself in the long run. I really wanted to create something that I could contribute to the community of people who suffer from this, because there are people who have it worse than I do. So I wanted to be able to find patterns. I wanted to be able to particularly pay attention to barometric pressure change because it's one of the most cited triggers, and it's really hard to track. If you go to weather sites, most of them bury that information. They might have it, but they bury it. It's not right out there in the forefront anymore. I think it used to be more commonly tracked out in the open for people than it is now. Um, and So I started with my own FileMaker database because, well, obviously, because I'm a FileMaker developer, it's what I know, it's fast and easy. And so I created this. It basically tracks some simple things, the date, the type of episode, whether it was sometimes there's vertigo episodes, and then what I call roaring, which is very, very loud tinnitus, like beyond the normal tinnitus that I experience, which is all the time. But the sort of secondary tinnitus that sounds almost like a freight train going by you as if you were standing right next to one. And I wanted to track, the starting time, the end time of the episode, and derive a duration from that. I also wanted barometric pressure values. And I realized that what was really important was what was the barometric pressure before the episode or leading up to the episode? What was it at the start of the episode and what was it at the end of the episode? Because for some people, barometric pressure rises result in one set of symptoms, and barometric pressure drops result in a different set of symptoms. And so if you can get a handle on what things are going to affect you, then maybe you can look ahead and maybe do something with that information. Maybe it can help you with some of that unpredictability, and again, establish a pattern. So, so this was all nice. This was a good first stab at the problem, but it wasn't going to solve a lot of people's problems because not a lot of people have FileMaker. I wasn't going to, create something that, you know, that I could distribute as a standalone via the iOS SDK or anything like that. So I was kind of at a standstill as far as sharing this with others, and that wasn't acceptable to me. So then along came, at a very fortuitous timing, came this March 2026 FMDiSC meeting with Joseph Petty and Sol Rodriguez and Matt Navarre discussing vibe coding. Or more specifically, they touched a little tiny bit on the topic of coding in a language I don't know, which is I've learned is also coming to be called agentic engineering, if you want the actual phrase that is being used in the actual tech world. It's agentic engineering. Um, but Heidi talked about this a little bit in the chat too. And honestly, Heidi, you kind of inspired me more than anybody because you talked about you and Chris doing it while you were driving and purposely not looking at the code that it was generating and just seeing where you ended up. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And I thought, what the hell? Why not? What could go wrong? This is where the naivety starts coming in. So I'm not an idiot, but I was naive about this. But I knew that. I went into it with a confident but naive attitude. So all I could do was fail and figured I would just give it a shot and see what happens. Let's talk to Claude and see what Claude can do for me. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I knew that. So, um, what were some of the things I thought about going into it? Well, first of all, I know how to spec a project. I've been doing that for decades. I've dealt with code on various levels in the past, even if I don't know JavaScript. I wrote HTML from scratch before there were any decent code editors. I've written long and complex Unix shell scripts. I've written JSON and SQL queries plenty of times. I knew this would be harder to understand. And then, how important is that going to be? That was to be determined. So, as a FileMaker developer, I dove in head first, and I started with Claude Chat. And I said, "Can you build this?" And I described what the FileMaker database does. You don't have to read this block of text, but you can if you want to. But I described the FileMaker database, and I described it as an experiment. And I told Claude that I wanted a standalone app, that it was going to be for distribution. I wanted to add new functionality as I went along, and new functionality beyond what I had already done, and that I know how to spec a project. And so Claude said, "Hey, guess what? You're on the right track, Bob." You know how Claude is, you know how AI is, it's very encouraging. My first mistake was letting Claude drive because Claude started asking me questions, and they were good questions. They were so good that I took my eye off the ball. I forgot my position as the project lead, and I became kind of a layperson, which I'm not. But Claude was doing such a good job of asking the right questions that it threw me off a little bit, to be honest. And that's something, when you undertake things with AI, I think that's something to really be aware of. There are a lot of pitfalls with AI. That's a big one, is AI will decide to jump into the driver's seat real quick, and you got to be careful about that. So that was my first mistake. Um, so Claude made some platform recommendations. It said, let's use a SQLite database, which is great for a standalone app. It runs locally on the person's device. Let's use React Native, which is made by Meta. I didn't know that at the time, but I found that out later. TypeScript is the default language. It provides a certain amount of guardrails, and it's a more evolved version of JavaScript, I guess you could call it. All of these are things I learned after the fact, by the way. I didn't really know what React was from anything else. I knew that it was something having to do with JavaScript, but I didn't know what. And then the third component was Expo, which is a framework for React, and it streamlines like building and deploying and iterating on iOS and Android apps. And it's a very fast way to get up and running quickly. And it can transmit the app to the iPhone on the fly as changes are made, which is very FileMaker-like. It has a huge SDK of pre-built packages for accessing native devices like the camera and geolocation, which was important to me, and the file system. Geolocation only from the standpoint of where are we going to get our barometric pressure data for. And it's got tools also for the Apple App Store and Google Play and all that. So it was, I think this was some good decision making on the part of Claude to do things this way. Um, So Claude said, now that I've asked you a few questions, let me build the full prototype. 2 minutes went by. Here's the working prototype. So from now let me build the full prototype to here's the working prototype. It's fully interactive. I'm not kidding. It was 2 minutes or less. And I was able to interact with it. I was able to, click on these and see details and change the values and so forth. So it was pretty impressive. Again, Claude was kind of blowing me away with what it was doing. And remember, I'm in Claude chat here at this point. Um, I'd never worked with these elements before, of anything to do with the framework. This turned out to be a hard part. Because I'd never worked with it before, I'd worked with things like downloading and installing packages in the terminal and so forth, but this was a pretty new experience. But Claude walked me through it. It was all done in terminal. Um, I was given the complete file contents for everything that I needed to build. So I opened up BB Edit, which is not the best code editor to use for something like this, but again, I went with what I knew. Been using that for years. And I did a lot of copy paste. So it would give me entire pages, entire files full of code. I'd copy and paste it. Then I would move them into the folder structure, which it had defined for me and which I had created from scratch. And then I was able to run it in an emulator on the Mac desktop, using Expo. And that was pretty cool. So much like FileMaker development, which I'm again very familiar with, there's a lot of testing, bug reporting, feature requests. Except I was reporting these issues to Claude instead of to a developer on my team. And Claude produced code snippets and directions to replace chunks of code as we iterated through the process. Um, I Another mistake that I made was I didn't use Claude Code. Why? Because I didn't really know what Claude Code was. I knew that there was a little code tab in Claude. I didn't pay any attention to it. And Claude didn't suggest that either. Um, it did make some good feature suggestions along the way, which was cool. And there were a lot of UI updates on my part as I refined it, which were able to iterate very quickly. I also wasn't very clear in my bug reporting. That was another mistake that I made. You have to be really explicit sometimes with Claude. I didn't upload a screen capture, and it ended up costing me and Claude about 2 hours. It kept troubleshooting the problem, and it was the wrong problem. And it misunderstood my bug report. And I know better. I shouldn't have wasted 2 hours on that. But again, a learning experience for me. And I told Claude, I said, you know what? Next time, prompt me for a screen capture earlier. And Claude said, noted, I will do that. And it has done that ever since. And that's a great thing about Claude or any other AI is you can tell it, put this in your memory. And that's a phrase you can use, add to your memory, always do this or never do that, or always address me in this way, or, don't bother complimenting me is a good one. And it will adapt to the way you want to work with it. So, the changes to the system sometimes conflicted, just like in FileMaker, you add a new feature and you break a bunch of other things that were previously working. Um, Claude initiated and curated a running to-do list of tasks, reports, and testing, and features, and changes, and bugs. Sometimes, something would happen, and the same thing that happens sometimes when you're working in FileMaker, it would lead to another new great idea, and I would tell Claude to just add it to the to-do list, which I could ask for at any time. Um, Code changes were happening very quickly, and the solutions were not always perfect. Um, Sometimes it took several tries, just like a human developer. Sometimes Claude would say, test this, and I would test it, and I'd say, nope, not working. And it'd go, oh, okay, it's because of this. And then it would go and it would fix it, and then it would work, or sometimes it would take more tries. The process really felt a lot like co-development, working with another developer side by side and going back and forth and tossing ideas back and forth and troubleshooting and commenting and providing critique. It was a very human-like experience in that respect. And Claude always explained what it found in the changes that were made. Then Claude Code. What a revelation. Things got a lot easier with the switch when I switched to Claude Code. I found out about it from, I think, Sol. I think you mentioned it to me. And Suddenly, no more copy paste, no more uploading files for Claude Chat to inspect. Instead, it was able to see them directly. It was an easy drag and drop upload to share screen caps or art for a splash screen, for the splash screen for the app and the icon. And it wasn't that hard to switch. Chat created a file to instruct Claude Code about the particulars of the project. There were some things where code still had to catch up to Claude AI, things that the AI, the Claude AI knew that the Claude Code AI didn't know. But it caught up pretty quickly, and then we were back in the groove, and like I said, things were humming along a lot faster. I think I accidentally did it right because starting in chat and moving to Claude Code, I learned more by searching through the code to replace items. I learned a little bit about how JavaScript is structured and what files did what and where to look for certain things. I wouldn't say that it's not exactly like immersion language learning, but it's a little bit like immersion language learning. So um, I think I actually kind of got it right. Now I just realized I did not set up my iPhone sharing. So I want to show you the app. So give me a second while I bring that up. I apologize for not having this ready. Um, and I apologize for also fumbling around. Oops. Let's see. Let's go here. Let's go here. Isn't this fun listening to me fuddle around with my Mac? Um, and um, so I'll tell you a little bit while I'm doing this. I really found that it was really easy to go back and forth between my phone and Claude and do iterative work with it. Um, in fact, it almost became second nature, kind of like a lot of things uh, in kind of like a lot of things in FileMaker. You work with something long enough and it just becomes very comfortable. So this is the Balance app. This is I ended up calling it Balance Vestibular Diary, and it's got a lot of and this is all just junk data, but it's got a lot of features in it actually, and it's actually pretty easy to use. One of them is these charts here. Now this one is kind of I've been uninstalling and reinstalling the app, it's gathering background information on barometric pressure changes. The black dots represent episodes, and the barometric pressure changes are represented by the red line and dots. So what's happening here is that Claude is, I'm sorry, that Balance app is constantly gathering information for about 90 days worth of barometric pressure data, which is not a whole lot to have on your phone when you consider that it's just a bunch of numeric values. And It's just capturing that stuff and keeping it so that if you go to report an episode that happened a little while back, or yesterday or whatever, it can still grab that barometric pressure data without having to go out to the web where you may not have a good cell signal or whatever. So, so that charting is one of the important things that it does. But I actually tapped on that tab by accident, which is why I went into that part of the demo a little early. But this is just a list of episodes. And so you click on one of these episodes and you can put in this is an already existing episode, which I could edit, or I can decide to add a new one. So I can go in here and I can say, okay, it automatically puts in the date and time for now. I can tell it that it was an episode of 3. The symptoms were some vertigo and some tinnitus and some hearing loss and a little bit of nausea. Then I can choose some triggers and say, well, I had a lot of caffeine, I had a drink the night before, and there was a big barometric pressure drop that happened. So that I happen to know about. And I can rely on the app to tell me that, because down here at the bottom, you can see it, see where it says barometric pressure. Now it's saying that 2 hours ago, the barometric pressure was zero point 0.6 different than it is now. If I put in an end time, it's going to give me another barometric pressure reading. I'm going to push the end time a little later, but it won't have a real barometric pressure reading. So it's just going to give me I think the current one. I can put in notes about what happened during the episode as well, if there are any other factors that I want to keep track of. And then I just say save the episode, and it's now in my list, and it's at the top of my list because that's the way things are sorted. Users can go in and they can say, well, I don't want to know 2 hours, which is the default. I don't want to know 2 hours before what the barometric pressure was. I want to know 8 hours before, or I want to know 4 hours before. And I want it to always give me that value instead. So they can choose that. You can tell it to use your GPS, or you can just say, I live in, and you can put in a city name, and it will just use that city's location. It actually looks up the city name, makes sure that it knows where you are, and then uses that as where to grab the barometric pressure readings for. You can lock the app so that you have to have a PIN to open it, since it's personal information. That's important for some people. You can choose symptoms that you want to include or not include. So if you're a person who never has nausea, then you can just turn that off and it won't show up in your value list anymore. And you can also add symptoms. So you can put in symptoms that other people don't have. Some people have visual phenomenon that's sort of a transference from, having the problem with the vertigo and so forth. They may find that, that light has an effect on them. Or if they have vestibular migraine, sometimes they have that in combination with other types of migraine at the same time. And so then they want to add other symptoms as well. So they have that option to do that. And the same thing with triggers. So different people have different triggers. Some people have triggers that no one else has ever heard of that being a trigger. And so they can add their own triggers as well. You can export your data. And when you do that, you can choose 30 days, 90 days, or a custom date range. And when you export that data, you're exporting, you've got two things you can export. One of them is just a plain, say, a CSV file for that period of time. And the other one is a PDF, which is sort of a summary for the doctor. And I don't have an example to show you, I apologize, but it's a sort of a summary. And you can hand this stuff all off to your doctor, right? So you could give it to your doctor and say, hey, here's what's been going on with me for the last 3 months. And the doctor can perhaps use that in helping with what they prescribe for you. You can create a backup of your data. So if you want to, just make sure that your data is protected. And then there's an error log export at the bottom in case somebody runs into a problem that we need more information to diagnose. That was grayed out because there's been no errors reported in the error log, so there's nothing to export. And then let's see, what else can I tell you about this? As far as the charts go, there's another chart down here, which is trigger frequency. What are the things that are triggering this person the most, right? Some people, they'll be surprised to find out that it's how much caffeine they drink or whatever. And that can be your information. So you can also go in and you can edit the episodes. So if I go in here and I realize, I didn't put in these values right, you do have a way to go back and edit the episode and deal with it. So and update your information. So that is pretty much everything that's in the first release of the app right now. And I'm going to stop sharing this. Oops, I said stop mirroring. Oh, there we go. Stop that time. Okay, so that's where I ended up. That was a few weeks of work, getting to that point. So a lot of takeaways from this experience. First of all, There are lots of dependencies. Over the time that we were building this, I was continually adding new libraries to the coding environment. So libraries are, for those of you who haven't done any kind of coding, libraries are simply kind of how-tos of, extra functionality that you can add in. Think of it like you think of add-ons. And some of these packages that I added were also compatibility fixes because I had three different moving parts. I had the React Native and the Expo, and then I had all those different libraries as as a whole, a moving piece. And so sometimes those libraries didn't get along. Sometimes the version of React or Expo wasn't right for the library, and Claude would grab the wrong one, and then it wouldn't work. And then Claude would go, "Oh, it's because we're using the wrong library. We need to downgrade that library, or we need to upgrade that library." And so there was a lot of that going on. Luckily, once I was in Claude Code, it could do that on its own. All I had to do was tell it that it was okay to do it. Because it won't do a lot of these things unless you tell it that it's okay to do that. I think I want to stop here and just see if there's anybody has any questions or comments. Okay. All right.
Sorry, Bob. I had
Sorry.
trouble getting to my mute button.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Do you have other users testing this?
So yes, I'm past that part of the process now, and I'll be getting into it in a minute. But this app is actually live on the App Store, a free app, free download. And right now I've got about 45 users. It's been up for about a week. I had about that many, slightly less than that, beta testers. And the way I got those testers was, and I'll be going over this a little bit later, but in brief, Apple's App Store gives you a way to make your app available to testers with very little investigation into what your app does by Apple. They leave you alone for that part of the process. So I was able to just put out an announcement with a link to people on various Facebook groups and Reddit, and let them know that it was there and ready for testing. And a bunch of people jumped on board and started testing it. And I got some feedback. I didn't get as much as I would have liked, but I did get some. And some of it was really good feature requests and a couple of bugs, not a lot of bugs. The code ended up being fairly bug-free by the time I got this out there.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
John here. I have two colleagues in our community who are suffering horribly from Meniere's disease. I'd like to get them a hold of this. I'd like to see it myself. Can you let me know what the possibility is to do that?
Well, like I said, it's available on the App Store.
What's it called?
Balance Vestibular Diary. If
you have a screenshot of that you could put up?
I'll see what I can do at the end. I think I do have, yeah, I do have something actually. I do. It's a little bit further down in the presentation.
Okay, thank you. I have to leave, but thank you. This is wonderful. This could be a lifesaver for some friends of mine.
I'm so glad to hear that, John. That was my whole goal. So
Good.
Thank you for that.
I have to leave. Thank you. Bye.
See you, John. So lots of takeaways. Let me share a few more with you and jump in with questions if you have any. First of all, technical debt. Design as you build is not optimal on any platform because way back at the beginning there, I kind of let Claude take the reins. I really didn't have the opportunity to sit down and really think about like, how am I going to build this app? What is it going to really do? What are going to be the main features? I think I got the main features in there, but what are other things that I could do? What are things I could do with the UI? Things like that. I didn't get to think it through as much as I would have liked. So there's a lot of design as I build. And like I said, that's not optimal. One mistake was making changes that seemed innocuous, but turned out to be a lot. At one point, the theme color, I wanted to change it, the UI that Claude came up with, and it gave me reasons for why it chose that UI, but I didn't, after working with it a little while, I didn't agree with the color choices. And so I did a theme color change, and Claude was like, "Oh, hey, that means we got to change a bunch of stuff in a whole bunch of files when really we should have had one file that defines the colors." And I was like, "Okay, do that." The great thing about Claude is it doesn't complain about that kind of boring work or having to go back and redo things. It just does it, and you don't have to feel bad because Claude isn't a person. And Claude doesn't care at all that you're giving it extra work or that things were not approached in the right way. It's just going to adapt and go back and make the best of it. Um, so Claude did that. It created a colors.ts file that then became the guiding authority for all colors throughout the app. Um, I didn't plan for the chart visibility the right way, and the charts actually turned out to be the hardest part of the whole thing. There was a lot of trial and error on the charts before we got those right, before Claude and I got those right. Um, and um, well, moving on. Um, But that copy paste experience, it was I said here a lot like immersion language learning. I said I think what I said in this earlier in this presentation is more accurate. It's not a lot like that, but it's somewhat like immersion language learning. Just doing all that copy paste and taking chunks of code and replacing them with other chunks of code and sometimes I would stop and I would ask Claude, "Hey, why are we doing this? What is this chunk of code about? What does it do?" And Claude would give me a real world answer, a real simple, layperson answer to that. Um, the other thing I found is Claude's always ready to work, which really can drive that part of all of us, I think, that want to like just keep going and put in late nights and just, work ourselves to death if we have to. So just be aware, Claude never says, "Hey, I'm tired for the night. We should knock off and get some rest." Um, Claude's UI skills are not always perfect. Um, but Claude does have a lot that it can draw on. There's a lot out there on the internet for Claude to borrow from, and it has its own whole set of tools and skills that it uses, and it can sometimes give me guidance. So that was nice. Um, if you ask Claude, "Hey, what went wrong here? What could we have done better?" Claude will say, "Here's what we could have done better," and it'll be a straight shooter, and it'll tell you about all the things that should have been done that weren't done, and so you have to be open to critique. Claude is. If you tell Claude what it did wrong, what you think went wrong, Claude will take it to heart and will change the way it works with you. You have to be as adaptable as well, as long as you agree with what Claude tells you. Um, Claude has skills. Skills, capital S, are actual like things that other people have taught AI to do and have defined in a way that you can grab those snippets, or sometimes the skills that you can just tell Claude to download. Some skills that I found out about, and again, Heidi, thank you. There's one called Grill Me, which you tell Claude about the project that you want to build, and Claude says, "Okay, let's talk about all the things that could go wrong with that project. Let's talk about all the hard things that you may not have thought of. Let's really dig deep on this." I haven't played with that a whole lot yet, but it looks pretty thorough. Um, there's one skill that Claude told me about. I said, "Can we make this easier?" And Claude said, "Yeah." In that whole process of um, creating uh, test versions of the system and getting those out there for testing, getting them uploaded, it's several steps, and there's some stuff that you have to make sure is everything's all lined up right so that you can not get it kicked back to you. And so it downloaded a skill that said pre-flight test flight, pre-flight dash test flight. And test flight is Apple's beta testing program that I told you about earlier, where you can get it out to a lot of users. So pre-flight test flight does that. It just makes sure everything's all lined up. It walks you through the steps every time. And you can tell it, "Hey, can you amend that skill so that I don't forget to do X?" And it'll remind you to do X every time in the process after that. So that's a really great thing too. I'm not getting any younger, and so I forget things and I fumble around sometimes with something that I should have learned three fumbles ago and didn't. And so it's nice to have somebody backing you up like that or something backing you up like that. It's hard not to assign a persona to your AI if you're not careful. There's another skill called insights, and that's sort of that really feeds into what I was talking about earlier, where you may want to look at, how's this project going and how have we done and what have we gotten wrong and what could we have done better. Insights is a skill that is designed around that concept. Another skill that I found out about, that someone on my team, Mark, sent me, is there's a DDR, FileMaker DDR reading skill. So if you're looking to do something with your FileMaker database that you want AI to help you with, the DDR in pure XML format is something that you can feed to AI, whether it's Claude or any other AI, and you can tell it to use this skill, which you can download. And I don't have the URL for that, sorry, but I think it's on GitHub. If you search for the skill, or maybe if anyone here knows, you can put it in the chat. But if you search for that skill, just read FileMaker DDR skill or something like that. You probably find it on GitHub. And let's see. Other takeaways, building in a vacuum. We all know that's a difficult and sometimes perilous thing to do. I don't know what I don't know. And that whole thing about known knowns and known unknowns and unknown unknowns, etc. Those are real pitfalls. And AI will sometimes only tell me things that I need to know if I ask the right questions. Unlike a human being who will intuit, hey, maybe he needs to know this. AI is not as good at that. So the answer is to ask stupid questions. Again, Claude is not a person. Claude, or AI in general, is not judging you. It's not sitting there going, oh God, I can't believe this guy's asking this question. It's just going to give you the answer. It's just like Google. It's just going to, give you what you need to know. So stupid questions can save you a lot of time. You should test everything. Sometimes, just like a human being, the AI will make dumb assumptions, and it won't make the assumptions that a human being will make. I found a big flaw that was easily fixed, but I was the one who had to find it because Claude just didn't think of it. And so, AI can struggle just like a human at times, and trial and error is exactly the same model. And then another thing I learned is you can say, hey, tell me about all the ways that this could fail in a user's hands. What are all the things that they might do that would break this? And Claude will come up with scenarios, and it handed me some really good ones. And it's, well, somebody might decide to do this thing before they do that thing, and then it'll totally break if they do that. And so then I was able to do some inoculation in the app against people doing those things. So Claude is very, very honest and straightforward about that stuff, and very accurate, I think. It rang true, the things that Claude said could go wrong. So here's a really, really big question that might be going through a lot of your minds, which is this sustainable if I didn't write the code? What if I get stuck and AI can't fix it? Well, yeah, that's a very real concern. And but I asked Claude that question. I said, look, I don't know anything about this code really, and what if? And Claude said, well, look, we know the app works. We were far enough along in the process that was a fair statement, and it's genuinely useful. And the feedback that I've been getting, that proves to be true as well. And there are three burdens. There's Apple iOS updates, which could sometimes require an update to the app. There's user feedback where users might say, hey, can you change this thing? Can you make it better? Can you add a feature? Etc. Or just, this thing doesn't work very well. And then there's things that may happen in the App Store where they may change a policy or something, and I may have to make a change in the app, something to do with privacy or some library that's being used that is no longer going to be supported on iOS, is the more likely problem that could arise. And Claude made some suggestions around all this. It said, control scope and manage updates, and it has some techniques for handling the App Store. But Claude's assertion to me is that with my disease knowledge and software project management skills, and then Claude with its coding ability, that's a viable combination. And I think time will tell on that. I think the AI is probably right about that. I think for a simple app like this that I'm not charging money for, that's pure goal is just to help people. I think it's probably right about that. Would that be right about other types of projects? That's for you to decide, I think. So I wanted to put it out there, obviously, since I put all this work into it. And there was a lot of work to be done to navigate the App Store. First of all, Claude helps with a lot of things. Creating an Apple developer account, which I didn't have one because I've never been an Apple developer before. Compiling a beta test version of the app, which is what test flight is for. In case you don't know, the way that works is you put your app up, you submit it as an Apple developer to your development space, and then it provides you with a link for testing. You tell it, I'm ready for beta testing and for test flight, as Apple calls it. And it gives you a link to where you can get to where people can get to the app and download it. But they can't just download it and install it on their phones. Instead, they have to use another third-party app called Test Flight, which then allows them within that app to follow that link and download the software, and then it installs it on their phone. And I don't know if it sandboxes it in some way or what, but I imagine that it probably does. But anyway, it works fine. And then it'll help you use Xcode to submit it to the store. Xcode is Apple's free coding environment. You can download it and use it, and it syncs up with your developer account. And then it helped me also with another thing that's necessary, which is you need a support page somewhere on the web, and you need a privacy page somewhere on the web. So I put those up on our Alchemy Group website, and it helped me with the language, so that I didn't have to really think about that too hard. I just had to really kind of read it and make sure that it sounded right to me, and it seemed like it was right. And so that was easy enough to do. It also offered to build the web pages for me, but I already had a template, and my website's easy to build in, so I just created the pages myself. So Apple Test Flight, Claude trained me on how to set it up. Some of the info that it gave me was a little bit out of date about where to click and where to look for things in the app. So I told it that, and it said, oh, okay. And then it updated to that. It updated that information for itself, and then it stopped being a problem. It did install some skills and agents to help with this, as I mentioned before, and it became a very easy update routine. And it's a combination of automation that Claude performs and then reminders for manual tasks, like I mentioned earlier. And what was really useful was agents that would evaluate and action and test and add documentation for new features and bug fixes. So every time I put out a new version for my beta testers, it actually gave me all the information about what to test, what had changed, what all the updates are, what to test, etc. So that saved me a lot of time too. I didn't have to type any of that out. And this is where it is on the App Store. This is Balanced Vestibular Diary. You can just click that Get button and it will download it for you. There are no in-app, what do you call it, in-app sales or charges or whatever it is. Putting this part of it together, actually, anybody who's have you ever like really struggled with screenshots? I know I do. Every time I start getting into creating screenshots, I want everything to be perfect. I want to make sure my records look right. I want to make sure the data looks realistic. I want to make sure that it's a good representation of what things will look like for an actual user. And so that means creating a bunch of that stuff. It's not fun, but it is necessary. And especially for the App Store, you need to have these up there for people to see so they know whether or not this app looks useful to them. There's lots of questions to answer in the app submission process. A lot of it has to do with what the app does. A lot of it has to do with if it's something that they have to pay closer scrutiny to. Are you charging for the app? Does the app contain actual medical advice versus tracking a condition like this does? That's a very important thing that I had to find out more about to know how to answer those questions correctly. Turns out this is not a medical app, it's a health and fitness app. And that got me past a lot of things that would otherwise be real speed bumps in the process. Age restrictions. Is it a durable medical device? Weird things like that. Copyright information. Like I said, you have to have that privacy and support page. The sizing on all these screenshots has to be really exact. Um, Everything has to be filled in according to protocol on the Apple site. So it's a lot of work. Um, and it takes a couple days for Apple to approve the app, but once they do, it automatically goes up on the App Store. If you have beta testers, you have to notify them manually. There's no shortcut to do that within the Apple the way the Apple App Store works. Um, all right, so where did I really end up? Um, well, all in all, it worked. The features work. The App Store accepted it. It was a great learning experience. I did a lot of things wrong, and Claude sort of had my back through a lot of it. Had my back more than it didn't, but not on everything. Um, it never would have been possible for me to do this without AI. I'm too old to learn a new coding language like from scratch and start actually building apps from scratch in JavaScript. I'm just never going to do it. I can't tell if it was really faster than it would be normal. Like if you were an experienced JavaScript coder, you might have built this app in about the same amount of time that I did doing this. But I was learning it all from scratch, and this was the first time. If I were going to undertake another similar kind of project, I would probably do it a lot faster and a lot better, a lot more efficiently now with what I learned. So there's that. Um, and I don't know if you remember, but in National Lampoon's Vacation, Clark Griswold wanders like an idiot through the desert for many miles trying to simply get help for his family in his broken down car and ends up with his pants on his head. And this is the moment when he sees his family and they're at a gas station and he knows everything's going to be okay. So that's kind of how I feel about this app now that things have gotten to the point that they've gotten to. Um, it could have as easily have ended up just a no-go. I could have gotten halfway through it and gone, oh, this is just a bunch of crap and it's not going to work and I'm done with it. Um, and where are we going after this? Well, I've got a to-do list. I'm working on the release for Android. I'm finding now that the process for releasing an app for Android is actually way more work than it is for the Apple App Store. Surprisingly, I would have thought it would be easier. I thought Apple would be much harder on me than Google's being. And I'm in the middle of that now. I really wanted to create an Android version. And by the way, there are UI things that have to be built differently. So, um, we had to allow for that in the app, in the code base for the app. Um, but I'm in the process, and it's going to be available probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks on Android is my best guess. Probably less than that, but I'm going to say 2 to 3 weeks. So if any of you are thinking, oh, so and so could really use this, and they have an Android phone, just be patient. It will come out. Um, there's going to be some new features, charting for symptoms like so like right now we're only charting what triggers are most common. We can also chart what symptoms are most common, light and dark mode. Um, and I was contacted by someone. Remember, I mentioned that most of the time Meniere's disease happens in just one ear, but some people are what's called bilateral, meaning they have it in both ears. I was contacted by a bilateral patient, and who said, "Hey, you don't have any accommodation for which ear?" So, and some other things about that. He said sometimes you can have different symptoms in each ear at the same time, and I was like, "Oh my God, things just got exponentially more complicated if I go down that road." But at some point, I'm going to delve into that because I'd like to help those people too. Um, Another thing that would be really helpful would be being able to predict pressure. So being able to go out and find a pressure source and predict what's going to happen with the pressure, and then maybe have alerts to notify people, hey, there's a big pressure change coming. Maybe you want to try to think about, what you want to do with your life during that period of time. Remember that one of the really big problems that people run into is, that fear that, I can't go on a trip, or I can't go out with my friends, or I can't go out alone, or whatever. Having that information, knowledge is power, and empowerment is what this is all about. Um, Other things like one user suggested, hey, can I put in what action I took and what the outcome was based on that action? So whether it was I took this drug, I went and I laid down, I did some deep breathing, I used the vestibular therapy skills that my therapist taught me, whatever it is. Some people use biofeedback and all kinds of different things to try to deal with this disease, and some things work and some things don't. So if they're experimenting with those things, they would like to be able to track that too. So these are all things that are going to be added to the app as time goes on. And I really look forward to being able to provide more and more functionality to people. And that is pretty much everything I have to tell you about my journey with creating an app using Vibe or autonomous coding or agentic coding.
Great job, Bob.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, like I said before the session, this is just such a great journey. It's not about it, you got the problem and you got the solve, but how did you get there, and how, the story along the way, and how you're a reasonably smart software developer who's been doing it for a ton of time with great results, and you're dropping yourself in a moment of vulnerability. You're dropping yourself into this new world and documenting your path. So I think it was really fun to watch. Great job.
Thanks, Dave.
Also, special thanks this morning to Agnes and her presentation on Dojo. Great comments to remember from the full access people, Rick and the people at Claris. Obviously, a lot of things out in the world that are changing right now. And again, kudos to Mr. Chris Moyer for his ever resourceful Tech News Roundup. Elizabeth, are you managing next meeting? Is that correct?
I am. I've got the June meeting.
Any sneak peeks or whispers of what's coming?
We are going to be talking to a couple of pillars of the community who both went through a process where they had to free themselves from owner dependence in their businesses. And they've written a book about it, but rather than do a book report, I'm going to attempt to delve in and get to the nitty-gritty real causes of what they had to do to unbind themselves. And then if we're lucky, we might have an appearance from Mr. Rick Coleman from Claris to give us some of the highlights about the new release.
Excellent. All right. Keep your eyes peeled on the normal resources, and you'll get some more updates in detail about what the next meetings are. Again, thanks to all our presenters today. Thanks for everybody coming. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there also. So enjoy yourself this weekend, and we'll see you guys soon.
Good meeting, Dave.
Thank you, guys. Hey, Bob, that was a great